because of insecurity, I can go and
Are you speaking of former insecurity?
I'm a little less insecure than I was before, but I noticed
fleeting and fading insecurity. Is that what you're talking about?
A little bit.
Because this conversation can point toward it or away from it, just with the way you word the question. In the past, I've occasionally felt insecure, not feeling it now, but in case it ever comes up again, let me practice the vibration of insecurity.
No, it's still present.
Pretty soon we're going to talk ourselves out of anybody wanting to sit in the chair. Continue. We just wanted to mock you in advance.
No problem. That because of insecurity, I can go after different things that would feel for me to make myself more secure. For example, I could have 5 cars, go after that, and that's my focus. And then, for example, sleep with a lot of women, so that would build my confidence. Or go after $1 million, so that would build my confidence.
But what you're talking about, the thing is, taking action in order to fill the void is a harder way of going about it. Here's what we would really like you to hear from us. Do anything that you can do that makes yourself feel better. So any action that you offer, if it's with the intention of feeling better, we would never say, don't try that. We would say, try everything. Because if you've got your eye on the goal of feeling better, then a lot of times you'll be inspired to something. We could not guide you and say, well, that action is appropriate and that action is inappropriate. Also, when you're feeling like you're feeling now, it's hard for you to sift out accurately in the past whether the action that you took was from a high-flying disc or from a lower-flying disc. In other words, you can move around on those discs quite a bit, can't you? Don't you? And so don't be ready to proclaim the action as inappropriate. Just set an intention to try to be more aware of what disc you're on before you act. Because what you are speaking, you're teaching our seminar here with your very brilliant words. You're saying, Abraham, if I'm on a lower flying disc, one of jealousy, and then from that disc of jealousy, I'm inspired to some action to pump myself up or build myself up through this action or this action or this action, is that appropriate behavior? And we say, remember, you are where you are. You are where you are. Yeah, so you can't respond from a different vibrational spinning grid disc than the one that you're on. We just wouldn't get too carried away with the action part of it. We would spend a little bit of time for the next 30 days teaching ourselves that we can be on the high-flying disc before we buy a car. When you're on the high-flying disc before you buy a car, everything about that experience is delicious. And every moment that you're with that car is incredible. Every time you think about it, you soar again as if you're in it, you see.
Yeah, because when I'm inspired to such action, it feels upstream, but also it feels like if I have that, then I feel better. So it's a little bit
well, maybe
duality.
You do feel a little better because it does distract you, and that's why we're not going to say that anything is ever a really bad idea. But no matter what disc you're on, let's say you're on that jealousy, insecure disc that you were talking about. Here's an easier way to say it. If you're on the anger disc, you'll be inspired maybe to punch somebody in the nose. But it never leads to anything very good.
Not for a long
and
run,
so,
no.
It only,
maybe for a little bit.
Precisely. It only felt better than the lower vibration of powerlessness. Anger does feel better than powerlessness. And frustration feels better than anger. But if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would, in our awareness of what disc we're on, we would be, oh, here it comes. Those of you've been listening to us for a while, so let's say this. This is really a good conversation to have. So you accept that you have a point of attraction, yes? And you're spinning on one of these discs, and let's say that it's a lower spinning disc, like fear or separation from who you really are. So as you're spinning on that lower disc, we say revenge feels better than that feeling of powerlessness or from that feeling of fear. And so as you are reaching to feel better, the inspiration may come to take some sort of action. But before you take the action, just reach for the feeling. Try not to act. Remember that you can shift vibration more rapidly. In other words, if we can convince you that you can move up this emotional scale and that the momentum on any given disc is really the subject that we're wanting to talk most about. We've not been here before. So let's say that you are on that revenge disc and you're talking about it a lot. And in talking about it with more detail, you're gaining more momentum. In fact, you're gaining so much momentum that you are inspired to action that is going to be detrimental to your experience. But now you understand about momentum. Even on a low spinning disc, you still are smart enough to know about momentum, aren't you? Don't you get momentum? And do you accept that adding more detail to any thought speeds the momentum, and adding less detail or more generality to any thought slows the momentum? Do you accept that? So doesn't that seem logical, that even in this anger, revenge feeling, that you could talk yourself down from it by getting more general, by saying things like, well, I'll tend to this later. I don't have to do this now. This isn't something that needs to involve me right now. This really is something that I can let go right now. Maybe not forever, but I'm going to let go of it right now. And as you slow that momentum, then the inspiration to act is the culmination of momentum. In fact, the inspiration to act is the perpetuation of momentum. By the time, we've never said this to you before, and it's the perfect place to say it. By the time you are inspired to action, there's a lot of momentum going, and the action itself increases the momentum all the further. You following us? So let's just say this in a really clear and productive way. No matter what disc you're on, unless it's the high flying disc, unless it's the highest of flying discs, you're wanting to be as general as you can in order to slow the momentum. Because if you've got a lot of momentum, we've never said this to you before either. If you've got a lot of momentum going on this disc right here, then you'll be less likely to be inspired to move to this disc, even though this disc is where your desire is. Is this making sense to you? So slow the momentum on any disc that doesn't feel good, and speed the momentum on any disc that does feel good.
And unless it feels good, the momentum feels good, then take action, and not if it not feels good.
Well, the thing about that is, it's too late then. Because by the time the momentum is strong enough that you're inspired to action, it's too late. You can only control momentum really very well in the early stages of it. Once it gets going, it's going to sweep you away. That's that analogy that we offer about the car at the top of the San Francisco hill. You're not wanting to stand at the bottom of the hill trying to stop that momentum. You won't stop it. It will take you. This was a very good discussion. You're understanding something you have not understood this clearly before. Focus. It's all about focus. It's caring about how you feel and focusing toward the feeling that feels best. If it doesn't feel good, then the focusing toward what doesn't feel good perpetuates it. Getting general about it slows it. And sometimes it's slow enough that you can just change the subject. Squirrel. Sometimes you are easily distracted. Don't you see that with your children? They can be in the middle of something that appears to be the end of the world, and suddenly they've changed the subject altogether, and you're over there lamenting the terrible parenting that you've been doing, and they're over it. Enough?
Enough.
Really good discussion.
Thank you for everything.
Yes, indeed.